Hello, everybody. Y'all doing okay? Yeah, man. It's the Sunday. It's Sex Sunday. We're going to say the word as often as we can this morning, okay? So let's just get comfortable with it. It's okay. We're going to talk about great sex. We're going to talk about good sex. And we're going to talk about bad sex. Actually, we're not talking about all of that. We're going to talk about great sex today. It's good to see you guys. Thank you for trusting us with your Sunday morning. And I know this is one of those Sundays that you're thinking, how in the world are we talking about this in church? I don't talk about this at school. I don't talk about this at work. I don't talk about this wherever. And we're talking about this here. It's true. We are. Man, I tell you what, at this point now, we've been in this series long enough that we've been through this book called the Song of Solomon, or the Song of Songs. And you get the idea of what this book is all about. It's one book within 66 books of this great book that we call the Bible, God's holy word. And this gives us great insight into the beauty of who God is and how He designed relationships to be here on this planet. And the bottom line is, His design for you and me is far greater than we can imagine. And today we get to talk about just an aspect of that and a glimpse into that truth. Now, years ago, my sister-in-law and my brother were about to be married, and it's Christmas time. And as we gathered together as the family, this would be her first time at Christmas with us as a family, and so she brought gifts. They were going to be married the following year, and so they were in full-on planning mode. But she came and shared the time with our family over this Christmas. And so as she brought the gifts to our family, what we do is, a tradition of ours is we start with the youngest and then we go to the oldest, and then we kind of go around and around and around. That's how we open gifts as a family during Christmas time. And so I went first, and I got the gift from her, and that because I was the youngest. Yeah. Anyway, golden child. That's what we call it, or at least that's what they called it. Now I've just owned it. I'm like, absolutely. Let's just call it what it is, right? I'm just kidding. So it's best to own it. So all you youngest in the room, just own it. It's a sweet place to be. So as the youngest, I went first, and my sister-in-law had found these neat little collector's items, and they were different books of the Bible, and she had selected one for each person in the family. And so for me, she picked the book Daniel, because my name is Danny, and so she picked the book Daniel and gave that to me for Christmas, which was really cool. And then she did that for everybody else in the family, just something that was meaningful. Perhaps maybe it was the book of the Bible that their name was contained within, or a story that reminded her of that member of the family. Well, my dad is younger than my mom, and so it was my dad's turn, and my mom goes last because she's the oldest. And so my dad goes, and my dad is a minister of music. So he loves music. And so as Tracy was selecting the book that she would give to my father, you can imagine where I'm going here. She thought, well, he loves music. He loves songs. And this is the Song of Solomon, or the Song of Songs. And so my dad opens up this book of the Bible that his future daughter-in-law was giving to him, her future father-in-law, that it's all about a love story between two lovers. And my dad opens it up. Of course, he's familiar with this book, and so he opens it up and he begins reading. And he just opened it up. He goes, "Thank you so much." He goes, "Her eyes are, and her nose, and her lips, and her neck," and it just starts making its way down, and her eyes are just growing, and all of a sudden she's ready to crawl under the chair. It's just amazing. To which my mom goes, "Oh my goodness, I can't wait to see what my gift is." So she's next, you know? And so my mom didn't miss a beat. She did awesome. My dad, we laughed about it, and for years and years we've been laughing about that. 20 plus years now we've laughed about that story. And you know, there's nothing more awkward than talking about sex in our culture, right? I mean, it's one of those things. It's just really, really awkward because people, they mess it up. Well, you know, it's intended to be good. It's intended to be amazing. And relationships and this design of relationships is designed by a very good God with a very amazing purpose, longing for it to be executed in the way in which He dreams for it to be executed for you and me. Well, so we fast forward a few years from that Christmas, and it's now my wedding day. It's mine and Rachel, and we're getting to share this day with our family and friends of friends and all of that. And everybody had come to Waco, and it was time for us to get married. And we had worked really hard because we'd been given some advice that said, make sure that you plan it out in such a way to which the day of the wedding you don't have to make any decisions. Because that way then you can avoid the trap that many fall into, and that is there's so many decisions that have to be made that you end up not being able to capture the day and to remember all of the details about the day. And so we did. So we worked hard at advanced planning and talking to everybody and everything, and it worked out great. The day of our wedding was indeed this ideal, perfect thing for us. And so as everything unfolded, the service went off and it was amazing, and then we moved into the reception time and all the cheese and the crackers and the people and all that stuff, everything went great, the cakes were great, it was all good. Well, during this time, we had asked the videographer to capture some moments from people that were there, that maybe they wanted to send a message to the bride and groom that day, and so they were able to talk on the video, and then the videographer took it upon himself and said, you know what, I'm going to ask the bride and groom to send a message to one another. And so Rachel had a chance to talk to me, and then I had a chance to talk to Rachel, and it is really pretty cool because you can tell kind of the idea and the emotion about the day, and also how Rachel really feels about me through this.
Danny, I love you so much, and I can't wait to spend the rest of our lives together. You're perfect.
Yes. Yes. Now that video is not doctored at all. That is truly what she said. That was, if she could say anything to me in that moment, that's what she wanted to say, and that's what she said. Oh my gosh. Is that not the best thing whenever you're in an argument? And perhaps maybe she's wanting to kind of help me improve upon myself? To just take my phone out and go, this doesn't line up with what you said. I will tell you, I have never done that because I'm smarter than that. But that sounds really good. It'd be awesome to do it. I won't ever do it, I promise you. But you know, on this day, the emotions they're just bubbling over. And man, it's just a phenomenal day. And the feelings are right, and the dreams are big, and the hope is great, and there's all of this stuff that comes on a wedding day that happens in the moment in which you're tethering yourself forever and ever with your bride or with your groom. So not long after this video was shot, we jumped in the limo and we started our way to Waco. Or started our way to Dallas, excuse me. And to which the next morning we'd be flying out on our honeymoon. And on the way there, something unexpected happened. Now, you know, obviously, this is after the ceremony is over, and you're on your way, and you've already imagined in your mind what's about to happen. And what ended up happening to me was kind of an interesting thing, because you guys, I shared with you last week about how all of my growing up times, number one, we didn't talk about sex as a family. This was not something that we talked about. So my mom and dad, we really didn't have this conversation. We didn't even have the talk. You know what I mean? It was just during that time of life, that was just something we didn't talk about, kind of like tooting. You just don't talk about it. You just got to walk through it. So that was kind of it. So we not had a conversation about it, and so but the conversation that I had would have been the way that my church taught me about this, and that is my church taught me growing up that sex is bad. You got to stay away from it. You got to say no to it. This is not good. This is everything, because the church operated out of not for any reason other than really well intentions. But the good intentions that the church felt of, if we talk about how good sex is, it may encourage teenagers to want to have sex. Well, there's a flaw in that theory, because teenagers, whether you're talking about it being good or bad, they're wanting to have sex no matter what. Well, my church taught me that sex was bad. And then all of a sudden, I've jumped in a limo and we're on our way to Dallas for the wedding night. And guilt and condemnation and all of these feelings began to kind of show up and go, you start questioning, is this okay? What a tragedy. What a tragedy on your wedding day, your wedding night, for that to be something that begins to cover in a non-positive way. You know, the things that I knew about sex in that moment I had learned in the locker room. The things I knew about sex I had learned from people who had a perverted view of what sex is. Hollywood and friends and all of that stuff. Now, regardless though, I will tell you that even though there was this cloud, even though there was this lack of knowledge, this lack of what the heck is about to happen, I was fully prepared for on-the-job training. You can laugh, it's okay. We're gonna have to laugh together today, guys. Okay? I was ready. I was ready to be trained. I was ready to, sign me up, put me in, coach, I'm ready to play. You know? We're ready to go. So anyway, I realized that what I'm saying right here, I'm probably one of the only ones in this room that dealt with any of these feelings. I realized that it's okay. Thank you for entering into my world today and letting me just kind of confess this thing. But in the event that there's anybody in this room that either shared those feelings or perhaps maybe you've been told that sex is bad, what I'd like for us to do is to talk about God's relationship and the way He designed for relationships between two people to be. And so we're going to talk about God's relationship goals. What He longs for you and me, to help people who are longing to find that soulmate. People who have found the one that they believe is forever and ever to be their completion, if you will. And then to be equipped to handle the relationship in such a way that leads to freedom rather than guilt and condemnation. Leads to freedom rather than dirty feelings. Leads to freedom rather than obligation. It leads to something that is beautiful and amazing. And the reason is because we know our very good God desires for you and me to exercise and execute His very good plan so that we can experience life to the fullest measure. It's what He wants for you and me. We want to experience life in a way that blows the dream, the American dream, blows it out of the water. So let's recap for just a second. Over the last couple of weeks, we've talked about the fact that God longs for us to fan the flame, first of all, of faithful what? Anybody? Attraction. So it starts here. So it starts here where we're making sure that our life is being lived in such a way that we see in us what we long to see even in the person that we're drawn to. We know how God sees us, and we know how God longs for us to be drawn to and to be attracted to our husband or our wife. And so there begins with faithful attraction and making sure that we are living a life that reflects the values of what God longs for in our relationships. And then from there we move into the courtship phase, or moving into the dating phase, and we want to fan the flame of protection. The reason? Because, gosh, my brain is drawing a blank right now. Because purity paves the way to what? Intimacy. You got it. So we fan the flame of protection from the temptation. And so we set up those roadblocks that we need in order to maintain purity, so that our purity will pave the way to intimacy once we get to tie the knot. Now we know that doesn't stop just at the wedding ceremony, does it? It doesn't stop then. We have to maintain this purity. We have to maintain this asking God for protection so that our marriages, the purity still paves the way to intimacy. And so today we find ourselves with following this couple and their story, the faithful attraction, protection, and now we get to this one. Yes. It's the honeymoon and it's time. All right? So over the years, our culture has made sex something that we are not supposed to talk about. You don't talk about it. You don't talk about it at home. You don't talk about it at school. You don't talk about it at church. But if you do talk about it, make sure that it's dirty. Make sure that it's a joke. Make sure that it's something that is really outside of the lines of what it's really all about. Isn't that what we're told? Or better yet, it's talked about from the standpoint of the lady who's not been cared for through the years, and it's now simply a duty that is to be performed. See, that's culture, is it not? Does that not define sex for the most part? That is not what God's design is. That's not what God's desire is. God's desire is something far greater than that. So our problem is, as we look at society and as we look at how this has been defined through the years, our society has narrowed the thinking narrowed his thinking of sexual relationships to just one thing, and that is the act of sex. Narrowed it down to this act. What we're going to discover today is that sex is far more than just an act to be performed. We're not getting a chance to sit down with young couples that are excited about getting married. It's called premarital counseling. One of the talks that we get to is in the book that we go through together called Getting Ready for Marriage. One of the chapter is talking about the sexual relationship between a man and a woman. Now, one thing is for sure, whenever we get to this chapter, it comes with all kinds of different thoughts and emotions, because number one, the couple usually hasn't talked about this with anybody, and so therefore they're about to talk about this with me, which is usually either I'm either their pastor or I'm a friend of their father's, or their mother or something like that. So I'm going to get a chance to talk to them about that. And then secondly, they're scared to death that I'm going to talk about my sex life with my wife. You know what I mean? They're sitting there going, oh my gosh, please don't, please don't, please don't, be scarred forever if I did that, right? Well, I don't do that, obviously, and so they're greatly relieved whenever we get to that conversation. But it's an important conversation that we have, because very few people have ever had a legitimate, good conversation with parents, with somebody that they trust, and so it's important that we get a chance to talk through these. The main reason for this is because most young men and young women that are looking forward to a marriage relationship come to the table with a very, very false view of what it's all about. Very false expectations about their future sex life. It's usually been painted by Hollywood, or by the locker room, or by girls on a sleepover, or by whatever. It's usually been painted by the web, or perhaps maybe what to expect has been painted by nothing at all, because it's just never been talked about. And so these expectations, most of the time, go unmet. Now, thank goodness, we're going to fight normal. We as a church are going to fight normal, and we're going to talk about things that very few people are willing to talk about. And so we're going to take this morning and talk about God's design for great sex. And the fact that He designed this for you and me so that we can experience this in a way that is beyond our expectations. And so, thank goodness we have a guide to help us out with this, right? We have our Bible. So if you'll turn with me to Song of Solomon chapter 4, we're going to join our lovely couple on their wedding day as they are anticipating their wedding night. And so, this is where God the Father longs to help you and me through inspiring Solomon to guide us through what God's relationship goal is for us. And His goal, very clearly, is that He wants healthy relationships, and He longs for us to fan this flame of great sex. So as we enter into this wedding day, we join our lovers in their story, and I want you to imagine for just a moment, because here he is standing at the front of the church, and his bride has just walked in, and she's about to make the turn to make her way to him. And these are his thoughts, these are his emotions as he sees her on their wedding day. How beautiful you are, my darling. Oh, how beautiful. Your eyes behind your veil are doves. Your hair is like a flock of goats descending from the hills of Gilead. Your teeth are like a flock of sheep just shorn, coming up from the washing. Each has its twin, and not one of them is alone. He said, you got all your teeth. I'm so pumped you got all your teeth. Isn't that great? Man, God is awesome. That's hilarious. That is great. Man, the humor of God, I love it. Verse 3, your lips are like a scarlet ribbon. Your mouth is lovely. Your temples behind your veil are like the halves of a pomegranate. Holy cow. This dude's like love poem, like poetry. You got like slow jams going. I mean, he's doing it, right? This is awesome. You hear this passion, you hear this serotonin releasing, and the butterflies in his stomach that are just fluttering like crazy as he sees his bride turn the corner. Verse 4, it keeps going. Your neck is like the Tower of David, built with courses of stone. On it hang 1,000 shields, and all of them shields of warriors. Your breasts are like two fawns, like twin fawns of a gazelle that browse among the lilies. Oh my gosh. You guys, can you see what's happening? Can you see the tender nature of his love for his bride? Can you see this? He's painting this picture. He's painting the picture for you and me. And so therefore, here's this young man. He's ready to tell us his plan. He's ready to tell us his plan for what is next. Verse 6, until the day breaks and the shadows flee, I will go to the mountain of myrrh and to the hill of incense. Now you guys remember that she regularly wore that necklace around her neck that was made of resin that was laced with myrrh. And as the heat of the day began to heat up, the resin would begin to melt away, and therefore the fragrance of myrrh would begin to fill the room. And so he talked about her fragrance, and so you can imagine where he's looking forward to spending some time. Between the mountain, come on people, between the mountain of myrrh and the hill of incense, you can't make this stuff up. This is awesome. And here he is. He's like, this is my plan, man. Been thinking about this. You can hear the passion, right? He's passionate about his bride. You know, it kind of reminds me, makes me think, you know, can't you just hear like John Mayer in the background singing "Your Body is a Wonderland" while this is happening? Anyway, that's a bonus for today. Verse 7, you are altogether beautiful, my darling. Now this is Rachel's statement right here. You ready? There is no flaw in you. Oh, you're altogether beautiful, my darling. There's no flaw in you. But here's the deal. Here's the beauty of what I hear in my bride when she says that word. We can laugh about it. We can look here and see this couple. But I draw a parallel to that. Because in that moment, she doesn't really think I'm perfect. Come on. I mean, her phrase has changed since then. It's now, you are perfect for me. Right? And so what's happening is we're experiencing this. They're experiencing complete trust in their relationship. He knows he can trust her. She knows she can trust him. And therefore, this thought process of there is no flaw in you begins to pour out as the emotions billow from one another. He continues on with the phrase that Jerry Maguire got the "you complete me" from. You ready? He goes, come from me, or come with me from Lebanon, my bride. And that definition of my bride is completion. It is the understanding that be with me forever and ever. I am so excited about this day because I am better with you. And I know you are better with me because there is a completion that is taking place. And so he calls her his bride. Come with me from Lebanon. Descend from the crest of Amana, from the top of Senir, the summit of Hermon, from the lion's dens and the mountain haunts of leopards. You've stolen my heart, my sister. And this is a phrase that was commonly used to describe a friendship love. You guys remember the three loves. This is the friendship love that they share. You've stolen my heart, my friend, my bride, which is now the commitment love that he's expressing. It says, you've stolen my heart with one glance of your eyes, with one jewel of your necklace. How delightful is your love, my sister, my bride. How much more pleasing is your love than wine, and the fragrance of your perfume more than any spice. Your lips drop sweetness as the honeycomb, my bride. Milk and honey are under your tongue. The fragrance of your garments is like the fragrance of Lebanon. Oh my gosh, you can cut the sensuality with a knife, can't you? Sensuous. That's what that says. I messed a U. You can hear it. You can hear the tenderness, this passion, the trust, the sensuous nature of their relationship. And he goes into the final quality here before she gets to respond. He says, you are a garden locked up, my sister. my bride. You're a spring enclosed, a sealed fountain. Your plants are an orchard of pomegranates with choice fruits. He goes on to talk about all the different spices that are there, the finest spices. Verse 15, you're a garden fountain, a well of flowing water streaming down from Lebanon. What he's helping her understand is that he knows she is set apart for him. There's a holiness that they're sharing one to another. That she is reserved for him, he is reserved for her, and they are set apart. They've set one another apart, and they have been set apart for one another. And so there's this holiness that they are sharing together. Now, I hope that you understand, and you've been taking notes up to this point, that this is all happening before the wedding night. This is all happening beforehand. These are all of his thoughts that he would someday tell his bride. These are all of the things that he's thinking about, and God is helping us paint a picture for his relationship goals for a husband and a wife to share together. He's painting this picture. So what we get from this, we have to understand, is that great sex begins before the bedroom. You're welcome, ladies. So boys, put the slow jams on, take her out for a dinner, and just talk to her. Tell her how amazing she is. Be tender with her. Talk about the mountains of myrrh. Talk about, just your passion that you share for her. And you go through the fact that, man, there's nothing you'll ever do that makes me love you any less. But these are the things that I love about you. And there's a trust-building moment that's happening. And then you just talk to her, and man, you just let her know what she does. Let her know what she does inside of you and help her to know that she's your one and only. And ladies, you do the same thing. Great sex. You want to have the best sex ever on the planet? It all begins before the bedroom. It all begins before the bedroom. And so therefore, this is what happens. Gentlemen, this is a recipe. Okay, guys, this is for real. This is gold for you. Please understand, God maps this out for you and me in some language here. We kind of got to decipher through it, but here it is. We do this, and we understand that it begins before the bedroom. Listen to her response. Verse 16. Awake, north wind, and come, south wind. Blow on my garden, that its fragrance may spread everywhere. Let my beloved come into his garden and taste its choice fruits. Amen. You do the work up front. There's a reception. If you do your job in wooing your bride, she longs to be with you. Because then she doesn't feel like just a piece of meat. She knows she's loved. And out of that, the response that comes your way is great. See, this is God's design. It's a beautiful design, and it's a good design. God's relationship goal is that healthy relationships fan the flame of great sex. And so what God is saying is, he longs for us to turn this act of sex into the art of sex. See, this is what he longs for. He longs for you and me to realize there is far more to great sex than just the act. There's far more to it. It's what happens throughout the day. And you can ask my kids. It's always uncomfortable for them whenever I walk by and slap Rachel on the rear end, It's all part of it though, isn't it? I hope you're doing that in front of your kids. Please do. Make them feel really embarrassed also whenever you're kissing in the kitchen. And they're like, oh man, come on. My statement to my kids is, you don't want us to do that. Because the reality is, if they get down to it, they actually really do want to do it. They just don't want to see it, right? But the fact is that unless they see it, that's going to greatly influence their relationship someday. So therefore, they've got to see their mom and dad, because that's going to be what ends up painting a picture for them about what their marriage is going to be like. And there are lines, obviously, in that. and we got to make sure that we honor our wives in front of our children. But it is important that we understand that the act of sex really needs to be transformed into the art of sex. It's got to be transformed because nobody is born knowing how to be a good lover. Nobody. And so therefore, the more you know, the less sexual fumbling you will do. Guys, can you imagine, those of you who are married in this room, can you imagine the early parts of your marriage? That it wasn't hard to talk about sex with your wife or with your husband without feeling dirty or like something was not right? Can you imagine being able to express your desires and your wants and learning desires and wants? Can you imagine that conversation without it being awkward? Because my guess is we got a pretty high percentage in this room. You may still not talk about that. But you've been married for over a decade. You don't talk about how you enjoy being wooed and talked to. And here you are still fumbling around with something that God designed to be great and to be off the charts. What it requires is communication, doesn't it? It requires communication between a husband and a wife. It requires you to talk about it. And so this is our very good God desiring this very good plan for us to execute this tenderness, passionate, trusting, sensuous, and holy relationship with our husband and wives. It's an art form. And it's something that our creative God longs for you and me to get creative, to talk, to share, to express, to try, to experiment, to do these things. This is what God longs for before and during the act. Because it's far greater than just the act. Now, the thing I love talking about this is because there's so many people on this planet that believe God is a fuddy-duddy, don't they? They think God is just a killjoy and He wants to pour water on a fire and He wants to tell you all what not to do. I think God is very different than that. I think God is not a fuddy-duddy. God is one who longs for excitement and pleasure and enjoyment. And He has great plans for how that gets played out in your marriage relationship. Here's the challenge for today. The challenge for today is each and every one of you entered into marriage, or you are dreaming of entering into marriage based upon what you know about sex. Based upon what you know about what that physical relationship is going to be, and you know that based on what you viewed or what you heard growing up. And so something that we've got to do is we've got to begin to fight the norms of our culture. We've got to begin to have conversations with our brides and conversations with our husbands about what it means to express the love that we have for one another. And God the Father longs for us to understand how He feels about us. He longs for us to be able to express a very similar love that we receive from Him, one to another. But that's not going to happen if we just relegate sex to an act. If we just listen to the world that we live in that says it's all about that moment, it's all about that one passion moment, we miss all that God has in store for the art that He created into the human physique, into the human body, into the human mind, of being able to paint a picture of love that is far greater than some simple act. So here's our challenge. The challenge is that if you're single and you're in this room, it's important for you to educate, to be educated. You got to ask people who are godly people to help you understand the truth about sex. It's called seeking wise counsel. It may be your parents. It may be your student pastor. It may be a volunteer within the student ministry. It may be somebody that is a part of the church that you've just been talking to for a long time. It's important to establish those connections so that you can understand the truth The next thing, if you're single and you're in this room, I want to encourage you, and please today, commit today, that before you tie the knot, you will enter into premarital counseling. That you will spend time talking about how you squeeze the toothpaste and which way the toilet paper goes over the top and how you're going to manage money and what this sexual relationship that you're going to share one to another is going to be all about. That you're going to be prepared as best you can with the tools you need to enter into marriage in a way that will set you up for success. So please promise today that you will learn how to talk about something that is rarely talked about on this planet through premarital counseling. And if you're married today, if you haven't already begun, and if you find yourself here today, please begin communicating what your sexual needs, your sexual desires, your responses, your enjoyments. Please begin talking freely one to another within the context of your marriage relationship. Please begin talking freely. Please begin being creative, adventurous, and as love-giving and as love-receiving as you possibly can be one to another. Please talk about it. Please help each other, because God has a desire for you that is far greater than you can imagine. The band's going to start playing here in just a second. And as they start playing, you're going to feel the mood shift. And as that mood shifts, I want you to begin to think about the hope. I want you to begin thinking about this. Go ahead, let's play. Here we go. I hope what we're discovering is that we all have a perfect ideal, a perfect reality in our minds of what relationship is supposed to be. And what I hope we're discovering is that God's plan, His perfect plan for you and me, blows our perfect plan out of the water. The good news is that there's people all across this room and you're sitting here going, Danny, you've talked about the ideal for 3 weeks now. I'm not the ideal. I'm not the ideal. So what about that? God's perfect plan doesn't require you to be ideal. God's perfect plan requires you to be willing to receive His love and to be willing for you to be able to push do-over. God the Father sent Jesus for forgiveness. He sent Jesus for life. He sent Jesus for every time we take matters into our own hands and think we can do it differently than God longs for us to do it and think it's going to be a better result. He sent Jesus to say, it's going to be okay. And my desire for you is greater than your desire for you. My freedom that I long to give you is greater than the freedom you dream of. My picture for your relationship, whether it be current, future, is greater than your picture for your relationship, current and future. That's the Savior of the world, guys. So maybe you find yourself today and it's time for a do-over. It's time to kind of write the course and stop coloring outside the lines and say, okay, God, we're going to color inside the lines. We're going to do it the way that you designed and give it a go. God has a very good plan for you and me. And He longs for you and me to get to experience it in a very good way. He loves you. In just a moment, we're going to sing a song called How He Loves. Now, there's a lot of ways you can go with this, you know. A lot of ways you can go with this. Clint's going to come up and give some specific instructions for response. But if you think about it, how He loves you not how He longs for you to be. He loves you how you are. He loves you today where you are. And He dreams for where you get to be someday. The more and more we say yes to His plan, His relationship goals, and He longs for that. So as you sing these lyrics, after a little while of, before, we're going to do some response first, but then you begin singing these songs. I hope that you're listening to how God loves you. And as you receive those words of how God loves you, be ready to turn those words to the one you love. You're in this room, turn those words to the one you love. He longs for you to rob His love and give it. He longs for you to receive His love and pass it on. And as you're single in this room and you're dreaming about the day you possibly get to do that, man, I hope that you're able to paint a picture in your mind of why you want to do it the way God plans for you to do it. His relationship goals for you, and thus they become your relationship goals. Guys, we serve a very good God. He serves a very good plan. Or He gives us a very good plan. I hope we begin turning this act into the art of love. Father, we thank you for today. We thank you for our time. Lord, we know that you've got a huge plan for us, and your plans are perfect. Lord, we know that there is no boring side of you. We know there's no desire to say all of the things you can't do. Lord, you long to tell us all of the things that are the green light. And then out of that green light, Lord, help us. Help us to be faithful. Father, help us to seek out your protection. And Father, help us whenever the green light comes. We know that sex is a beautiful, artistic expression of the love that you have for your bride and the love that we have for you expressed between two people. Father, we may manifest your love in our marriages, and may we honor you with our lives. We pray in the name of Jesus. Amen.